What's happening? It's Ronin here. I'm here at Gabe's house, and it's spring outside. It's freaking beautiful. It's like finally warm. It's like early in the morning. It's probably 60 degrees. Just the sun is like, I'm looking right out the window right now, and you can just see the blooms are just fucking blowing up here. Cherry blossoms down the street. There's tons of flowers that I don't know, that I didn't see in Asia, so I don't really know the names of them. But I can see some cherry blossoms over there. Over by the church. Yeah, it's just freaking beautiful. And I got a comment. I wanted to make a reaction video to it. So there's a comment in my latest video. Okay, and it's by Neville Good. Neville comments on a regular basis. And he always has something that's controversial, for better or worse. So anyway, here's the comment, right? Ronin knows just about everything, but when it comes to friends, I think he's stuck in the past. This is not a knock on Ronin. In fact, he's my favorite YouTuber, and I look up to him as the father I wish I had. But in today's age, you don't need friends. Anyone who knows me in real life will call me a hypocrite because I happen to have a lot of friends, but that's only because I'm a people person and I like and not need friends. Okay, so he went 2006, 2011 without any friends, and he was just fine. He went out in public and spoke to random people. That gave him the friendship he needed, right? And then he went into some other things about women. But I wanted to get on the friends part here. And I think it's a very good topic. I was just having a discussion with a good friend of mine who I've interviewed before on Ronin, like in the very beginning of the channel. Doesn't matter which episode. But anyway, he's a good friend. And he was talking about his current situation. And he was asking me, we had like basically an unblackmailable call, talking about what she said and what it means, and then trying to figure out how he should think about it and how he should respond to it. And one of the things was on this very topic. We were talking about friendship, and we were talking about how some animals are pack animals, right? Like wolves. Why wolves are so dangerous is because they work together and they learn. So like a bear basically comes in by itself, and although it's quite formidable, a bear doesn't come in a pack. One bear comes in and you have to confront this one bear. Right? You have to outsmart this one bear, or you have to drive it off long enough. And then the bears, they don't come back. Like bears do have their, what do you call it? They have a geography that they travel in like sharks do, but they don't like plan to come back and reuse information that they found, right? Whereas wolves are not like that. Wolves are very much looking for weakness. So they're testing, they come in and they look at you. And I have been stalked by a wolf, and I talked about this in one of my episodes. I was on the border of India and Pakistan and in the desert, and I was there and I got stalked by a wolf, and I learned a lot about wolves. And this is not about wolves. This is about the way, okay, a lot of women will try to isolate you from your friends. And the reason is because women are very much pack animals. And so they will all, and this is what the whole women's movement is about. And like basically even way before the women's movement, way before what's going on today, women had their own world. And you could see that if you listen to Bettina Arden talking about back in the day in Italy, and her relatives, how there was women's world and there was men's world, and they were quite different. And in women's world was very social, and there was a lot of sharing of information. And whereas men were not like that, men were much more lone wolves, essentially. And because of that, if you look at a wolf, and like if you're a farmer, or if anybody has done any farming, you know that a wolf is much more dangerous than a bear to your farm. Because the wolf doesn't give up. He just keeps going back, keeps learning, comes back with more. And there's more brains working against you. Like the wolf, you might be looking at one wolf and there's a couple other wolves way off in the distance watching and figuring out what's going on another angle, right? And then you're busy doing this thing with the wolf, and then the other wolves come in. They might come in from the other side. They might, there's a lot of things they might do. And when you're dealing with, and I don't mean this in the sense of confrontation or anything like that. I don't mean that men and women are in this kind of dance, and I don't mean that women are trying to take you down. What I mean is that some animals have evolved to work in packs as a pack animal, and other animals have not. And that has a very profound influence on your relationships. Women definitely work in packs, and they share information that would shock you. They share information about anything about your penis size, what you do in bed. They're going to share all kinds of information with their girls, and then the girls all know everything about you, her friends. You think they're just friends who barely know you. They know everything about you. Whereas your friends don't really know much about her. There's not an even thing, right? And also, they're sharing information, so they come into you, and you tell them stuff, thinking that you're telling them stuff, but they're going to share it. Then this pack thing kind of comes into play, right? And so, men and women are both pack animals too. So that's another thing to think about. Although men do tend to be more lone wolves in comparison, at the heart of it, at the bottom, we're the same. We're both pack animals. But what women will try to do is to kind of make you more alone so that they're still in a pack and you're more alone. So when a girl's trying to get you to make a commitment to marriage, what she will tend to do, and you can test it with your truth meter in your own life. Did this happen to you when you started to date a girl? She becomes your whole world. She, like, everything you need, she's there. Every time you need to talk about something, like you might have before, like I might have talked about Tesla motors or batteries with somebody, and then all of a sudden she's interested in that, and she becomes this toolbox with all the Swiss Army knives. Everything you need is kind of available. So you're like, well, that's kind of easy. She's into, I didn't realize she was open to talk about all these things, but what she's doing is she's isolating you. She's now becoming your whole world so that you don't have that backup. And essentially, she's not, I don't want to, at the same, I want to describe this dynamic to you, and also for women too, because I know there's a lot of women listening. I want to describe the dynamic that exists, but at the same time, I don't want to put a sinister take on it. Essentially, the other way you could think about it is they're doing all these things, but the reason why they're doing it is to make a sale. Okay, so a salesman will do this too. He will try to make a sale. So he's going to kind of take over, and every time like your real estate salesman is all of a sudden interested in your job, and he's interested in your car and where you can get that fixed, and this kind of, when you move in the area, all of a sudden he's the Swiss Army knife for whatever you need. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I don't want to put there isn't a sinister thing to it, but I'm not saying it can't have a bad or good outcome either. It can have a very bad outcome for you. And for both of you too, right? So one thing that I think men need to do, Neville is very confident that he does not need friends. And that delusion is fine. And we all have delusions and things that we don't know about life or don't understand. And that's fine. The problem is when you do need something, especially when it comes to friends, it becomes very, 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 very important, because and also I would dissect his comment even more, because he says he is social and has a lot of friends, but he doesn't need them. And then he goes out, this example of when he goes out and talks to a lot of people, and then he's basically saying that's not friendship. but that also suffices for friendship. I think there's a lot of delusion in this comment, to be honest. And the idea that being social is not friendship, or that this is some kind of magical superpower that makes up for things. That's what friendship is. It's talking to people. It's being social. It's a straw man about the word friendship, because being social is what it's really about. It's, you talk to somebody. You're not alone, right? You're not alone. So when you talk to people, you're not alone. Whether you talk to people you know or you meet new people, you're not alone. This is why social groups are so important. You might have, I talked about this actually in the last one, like, it doesn't matter what the group's about. It could be AA, it could be anything. It's a social group that you can kind of be social with. It could be church, it could be the whatever. What are those different groups that business people get involved in?
Like business.
Business groups, and it could be guys that run together. They ride bikes together. They play ultimate frisbee or whatever. It could be a local neighborhood committee for like reducing crime or whatever. It's just a reason for humans to get together and be social, right? And the idea that we're above this or don't need this is just plain downright delusion. It's not true.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce, the Kiwanis Club, these kind of things, right? And there's another one for doing speeches. I can't remember what it's called. The Toastmasters, like Toastmasters and stuff like that. In Japan, the Toastmasters is huge. I got invited to speak at a Toastmasters thing once. And I was surprised. It was quite smart guys, and it was enjoyable out in Yokohama. But the thing is that, here's the thing, is that one, we're social. So it doesn't matter how you get it, you're social. You need experience. You don't need it, okay? You don't need to eat anything with nutrients in it, really. You can live probably for another 30 years on instant noodles, but eventually you'll die of cancer, and you're going to have all kinds of health problems because you're not getting that nutrient you need. The nutrients, nutrients are kind of like friendship. They're not something you immediately notice. You can skip them for a long time, but it's the long-term negative effects. And if you want to, you can be deluded into the grave that you don't need them, because you can say, well, I got cancer because it runs in my family. It's not because I didn't eat anything that was nutritional for my body. You can believe anything all the way to the end, and you can make all kinds of reasons for it. You have the right to do that as a person. There's no one can stop you. And most people do. You can not only cheat, you can fool yourself in the moment, and you can fool yourself long term. And you can never admit you're wrong. That's fine. That's the one nice thing about a free society, is that you can do that. You have the freedom to do that. And we all have things that we are kidding ourselves on. So don't get me wrong. I'm not signaling out Neville. I mean, we have things that we're not ready to face. Some people who grew up in a very abusive situation will say, my family did the best they could, and they're not ready to face maybe something that happened. Or maybe I had a friend who had a very terrible marriage, and he couldn't admit it for like 30 years. Like, now he can finally say something bad about his wife, but she like totally fucked him over. I mean, you can't really fuck a guy over any more than she did. I don't want to get into the details, but he couldn't admit it for years. He would never say one single bad word about her. And everybody that knew her and knew him, even her friends and her sister, were like, dude, like, my sister's pretty fucking evil. Like, I feel bad for you. And he's like, no. She was very nice to me. She did her, and people were like, dude, you're living in delusion. But he wanted to believe that. But finally, at some point, he had to kind of come. Something broke down in his system of beliefs where he could finally face that. But I think when it comes to social and friendship, is that you find out that you need these things too late, and then it's too late, and you're too isolated. And I'm not saying Neville's doing this, because I don't think Neville's doing this. I think he's lying about that too. I don't think he's actually not having friendships. He's having friendships and giving advice to other people not to have friendships, basically, because you don't need them. But I think they're both not true. Is even when he was in his period when he wasn't, he had a lot of social friendships, and whatever words you use, he was social. So the reason why you need people, okay, is not, again, it's not for the small things. It's for the big delusions that you have. It's for the big things in life. Today with my relationship, my discussion with my friend, he was blown away by my ability to dissect his situation, his girlfriend's situation, and what he actually needed to say to her and what he needed to do. He was like blown away because it was so true, right? I was able to dissect the whole thing and say, look, here's what's going on. And he was like, oh my God, I could have never figured this out on my own, but you're absolutely fucking right. I got to do this. Otherwise I'm fucked. And so you don't need friendships, and you probably don't even need most of your friendships. The problem is you don't know which friendships you do need. And you don't know when you'll need them. This is why people jump off bridges. It's not that they're so different than other people. And I'm not saying anybody's going to jump off a bridge either. It's just an example. One friend at the right time would stop that person from jumping off that bridge. One friend that understood them, right? But they're searching for that. At that moment, it's not there. We walked over this bridge, Bayonne Bridge last night, and there's all these little people put up all these signs, and they say, your life is worth this. And apparently a lot of people jumped off. So they have these like signs up there, handwritten signs up there. And it's obviously somewhat organized and approved by the government or whatever. Maybe they're even written by the guys who run the bridge. I don't know, but they're pretty sincere, And the reason why is what they're trying to say is that they're trying to give you what you would have needed from a friend.
Right.
They're trying to give you that pep talk, right?
Signs are like, I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
I'll be here to give you a hug.
And people need you.
Right.
And then you make other people happy and things like that. They're telling you things that you might need to hear at that moment, but because you don't have it, that's why you're there on the bridge. Is because you don't have that. They're saying, well, like, we're there for you, right? To give you that. And I think when it comes to your life, okay, this is a delusion that many men have. I think on this channel too, is they're thinking that they are logical and women are emotional. What that means is women are pack and they are a lone wolf. And that is fine. That is not fine. And you are not a lone wolf, and women are not entirely pack animals either. Women can be very much lone wolves too. There are women who are really much more lone wolves than most guys. You'll see them. You'll meet them. You see them in science. You see them in different fields. They're just like, you'll see them like they're like little kids and they already know what they want to do. They're like, I'm going to play the violin. And you're like, oh, that's nice. You buy them a violin. And then they become a concert pianist. And then they just keep taking it to the new level, adding new sounds to it. And and you realize, holy shit, that kid actually knew what they wanted. They were like, that's what they wanted to do. And that's what they fucking did. And they didn't give a fuck. So we all have both sides to us, But what a lot of guys do is they really underestimate their need for other people. And
we'll say, the worst punishment in jail, right? Solitary confinement, right?
Right. That's true too. Solitary confinement is it's the thing that drives people over the edge too. And some people, right? And at the same time, there are people like Viktor Frankl. I don't know this guy. I'm just using, again, when I use examples, it's just out of convenience. I don't know this particular guy, if he actually was the way he wrote his book, Man's Search for Meaning. and he lived through a concentration camp and everything. I don't know if he really did. I don't know if he was really like this, but I will tell you this. What he described in that book exists. Okay, so some people are like that. So that archetype of person, what they do in their moment of kind of solitary is they totally let go of that need. And they totally go into peace. Like the monks who meditated in the desert for 40 years I talked about before. And so I'm not saying that we need people and that there's not another level. There is another level. But I will tell you this. Those monks that did the 40 years, they didn't do it forever either. They wrote a book about it, and then they came back into society. They found that the tank was full of gas, had plenty of gas left. They found that extra tank, and they went down that road of solitude and peace and listening to their inner kind of dialogue. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here. In modern society, you very rarely get to this level. And I'm not saying anybody, I'm not there, anybody. It's something you probably only get for 40 years of fucking solitude, right? I'm talking about a very real thing. These guys were not going crazy. They reached a peace with themselves. And then when they came back into society, the sign that it was an integral part of their manhood was that they rejoined society again. And they kind of integrated that period of peace into their teachings, into their life in the church at the time, and their life with the other monks. And that's when you know something's real, is when they discover it and then they integrate it into their new personhood, right? So if something's real, you'll know it's real because it will become integrated with you and you will become a more broad person with that kind of thing. But whenever you're saying, I'm this or I'm not that, or I don't need that, that's not the integration I'm talking about. It's the integration of the whole you, right? And I don't want to get into the whole evolutionary biology because I don't think that's the ultimate answer. I think you know inside yourself that you love people in your life. You might love your mother. You might love the people who helped you in different times. That's what I'm talking about. That social, that guiding, and that's why you're listening to this. That's the other thing too. If you're still listening to this, you're getting that through my voice. So you could say, oh, I don't need it anymore. Well, you just got it. You just got it right here. You just got laid on you a bunch of this kind of understanding, integration, friendship, appreciation, growth, whatever it is. You just got a piece of it, So there are various ways to get this nutrient. Just like you can get vitamin D from eating vitamin D supplements. You can get vitamin D from certain nuts and certain leaves. You can get vitamin D from iron-enhanced milk and things like that.
From the sun, also.
Vitamin D. But the main way you get it, the main way your body's designed to get vitamin D is through the sun hitting your skin and creating vitamin D. That's what's so strange about vitamin D. It's more of a hormone than a vitamin. But anyway, your body produces it. That's the best way to get it because your stomach can digest it and you can take it in your blood that way. But it doesn't work the best way. The best way is to take your clothes off, get in the sun, and let your skin, because that's the way you evolved with no clothes. And there was no houses, no cars, no internet. You were out there in the sun all the time. And so your body said, oh, here's the best way to get this. It's very strange when you think about it, that your body would learn to get this very important hormone, this vitamin from the sun. I mean, it's amazing, really, when you think about it. Not every vitamin comes from eating, right? So,
I just want to say one thing on the topic quickly. It's not that any guy needs to necessarily shoot to become like super successful or anything, but if you intend on becoming more successful, this is going to be like a skill you'll have to cultivate, right? developing friendships and maintaining friendships, right? There's no one that's you would consider very successful that's an island outside of maybe someone that bought a bunch of Bitcoin when it was cheap or something like that. For the most part, successful men tend to have healthy social networks.
Right. Totally. I totally agree with that. And also, no real mentor will take on somebody who's deluded about their need for mentorship and friendship. Mentorship is not like a computer program. It's friendship, right? Anybody who, if you're, like, say, when you're older and you're very wise in a certain career, and then somebody tells you they don't need, essentially what they're saying is, I don't need you. I don't need you. I got everything I need. And essentially, fuck you, right? I don't need you. And that attitude does not, a mentor will never take on somebody with that attitude because they know that they'll never be appreciated. Because the heart of mentorship is friendship. That's what a mentor is. A mentor is a friend. It's a trusted friend who has wisdom, right? And it's a dance. There's a mentor and there's a mentor, right? A mentee, whatever it is, and there's a mentor. And it's a willingness to learn, and I talked about this before, the mentor also learns from the younger person. So it's a two-way street. The mentor's not only teaching, and if you're thinking about being a mentor and you're thinking that way, you're fucked. When I mentor, I look to learn from the young people. And they feel that. That's why people like to be mentored by me, because I respect them. And so even as a mentor, I'm looking to broaden my horizons with their perspective. And I think that's a big surprise for young people. They think I would just do that at fake, but I know that they know things I don't know. And there's things I can learn. There's perspectives that have changed. There's new words. There's new technology. And there's just all kinds of things that happen when you grow up in a different age, right? And I can gain from that, right? And I think that's an essential part of a mentor is the mentor is not a teacher. A teacher is a one-way street, in a class. And the teachers, that's what's so lame about schools. It's so unnatural because in real life, that's not the way teaching really works. There's a gain on both sides. And both people are learning from each other. Just like I talked about having young girlfriends, I thought if you're going to play the field, if you're a guy, let's say, you're going through that phase in your 20s or whatever, and you're going to have, say, I don't know, 5, 6 girlfriends at the same time, which I think is a good balance for a period of time for any man. When you do that, you want to have different ages because you can have older women and you can have younger women and women the same age. And that will give you, it's kind of amazing actually. We have a woman who's 10 years older than you. You get a lot out of her. And a woman is 10 years younger than you. Say you're 28, she's 18. Another one's 38. That's an amazing broad experience you got there that you're learning from. And you're also, you can see where you're at too better by having these different, if you're going to have you don't want to have all the same age. Definitely want younger and older. And that will help you. That will allow you to explore and learn different parts of yourself, right? And so I think that the sense that you don't need people is what is the heart of this. And if you don't need people, I think, like I said, I think that that's a delusion. But also, you can go without people just like you can go without vitamins. So I think that it will also sabotage your love life at some level too, because in the end, that's what women want too. They want somebody who is going to be in a connection with them, a social connection with them. Women are very social, right? And they want somebody who's in that social connection with them. I think that it shoots yourself in the foot in many ways. And it's a delusion. And at the same time as maybe I'm reading this all wrong and has nothing to do with Neville. And he's not saying that. That's very possible. So Neville's not the final word on this one. I'm talking to you. These are kind of thoughts we all have. We all think. We wonder how much we need people. We wonder how much we need women, how much we need relationships, how much we need older people. We wonder where our place is in the world. Because it's very complicated, right? We all wonder, are we really friends with people? Are they real good friends? We wonder about everything, It's like, what really created ourselves? Like, how did I overcome a lot of difficult things? Was it the friends who were there for me? Was it my own internal strength? Was it both? Which moments were the reason why I wasn't on the bridge, in my life? And also, not just those kind of dire situations, but a lot of times I will go and change careers. And that's also a very big jumping off point into the unknown. And I had people around me who supported me in those changes, right? Just like right now, as I've been doing in America for the last year, I've been undergoing a very, very, very precarious and difficult and deep transition. And there have been people who have been here on the ride with me. And I realize that. See, I have gratitude for what people do for me. And also, just like I said, I remember evil. I also remember what people do for me. And actually, I never forget. And that's the difference, is even many, many years later, I will remember things. Because that's the way I discipline myself to do that. I don't just take from people and then say that was me. I didn't need anybody to teach me that. I just, I needed help. When it's all done, it's easy to say you did it yourself, right? Super easy to say. And this is what happens. Actually, this topic is kind of going into an interesting direction. A lot of rich people, successful people, let's say singers. There's two types of people making a Grammy or Emmy or whatever speech. There's people who make fake speeches thanking people for bringing them there, right? It's like, I want to thank my production company. I want to thank my, the guy who gave me a lot of money. And there's another person who says, I want to thank my 8th grade teacher because when I was down and I didn't feel good about myself and he noticed I was good at woodworking and he said this, and they actually appreciate. And then they say, my producer didn't have to do this. The money man didn't agree with him, but my producer believed in me. And he could see that I could do something. And in that Queen movie, the movie about Queen, there was that scene where they leave the one producer when they're going to make an opera. And they go off and make Bohemian Rhapsody and that whole album, right? And he says, you're going to be the one. You're going to be remembered as the person who lost Queen. It's because he didn't believe in them. And that's why it was so depressing in that movie, because he couldn't blame anybody but himself. Because he couldn't see that they had... This group was such an amazing creative group. And it wasn't just one person. It was a group. And that's what also was a message of the movie, too. When he went off on his own, he wasn't the same as when he came back to the group. They were a group that created things, right? And that's really the message of that movie, too. Yeah. You have one talented guy, but he needed those other guys. And if you watch the movie with this eye, you'll say, God damn, that's true. And that guy could not see that this band had more in the tank, right? They had the ability to do the 40 years with nothing, right? And maybe the other producer did not either. Maybe he just said, okay, I got my chance with Queen. I'm just going to let them do whatever they want because I'm so weak. And then they came out with this beautiful masterpiece. That's possible too. I can't remember that part. But basically they ended up getting the chance. And they took advantage of that chance. And they created one of the greatest, most creative transformations, which was absolutely amazing because I wouldn't put my money on a band going from a rock band to an opera. That's not something that's highly likely, right? And so maybe they got it by chance and they gave the wrong person credit just because they didn't have a choice. You know what I mean?
No.
It's kind of like some hot girl might think that some guy believed in her, but actually she was just so hot. She was hotter than the other girls he could get. So he was willing to put up with more stuff.
So I want to say something as far as the not needing anyone, being an island, because it's not just closing off a one-way road. You're actually closing off a two-way road. And I'll explain. Like, sometimes I'll buy flowers for Lisa downstairs, the older woman that lives on the first floor, for no reason, just to do something nice. Help a stranger change a flat tire. Help someone fix something in their house for free, right? And not expect anything back. Because I want to put this stuff out into the world, this, like, friendliness. It doesn't have to be, like, you're my friend because you do stuff for me. And it's not that I'm doing stuff for you because I'm expecting some kind of reciprocation. Right? It's just like an open channel of relationships. Whereas if you're like, I don't need friends, you're closing off this channel. And not only are you not, it's almost worse in some sense that you're not willing to give back. Not willing to, but you're cutting off those parts of yourself from the rest of the world, essentially.
Yeah. I think there's two aspects. There's one aspect that you're thinking of the future. So people realize that there's nothing to build with somebody who doesn't have gratitude, right? But the way that you see the gratitude somebody has for what other people have done for them is by how they treat people who got them to where they are. Okay, and this is one of my biggest beefs. When I first got to the men's movement, let's say, I'm just going to call it the men's movement. Let's say 3.5 years ago when I started making videos. Believe me, you guys are out of your mind if you think that's when I came to this thing, or that this thing was created then. I have been doing this since 1990. I have been the person I am right now. I mean, the attitude I have of teaching, reading The Predatory Female, teaching guys, giving books away, trying to teach people about women. I've been doing this since 1990, like period, endless. That's why the channel was so natural for me. That's why I have so much to give, because I've been doing this forever. I've got a million ways to look at it. I've got a gazillion examples, right? But here's the deal, is that my past is full of people who believed in me, right? And I appreciate those people. And here's okay, to the men's movement. Here's what's wrong with the guys who don't give women appreciation. Here's the problem. It's the past. Okay, so I was talking to somebody, I'm not going to say who. I was talking to somebody and I said, look, you've got to be grateful for, I was trying to figure out what I'm saying now, I have a better perspective on. I was just at this time, it was kind of baby steps. I was figuring out. I was talking to somebody who's definitely going to be listening to this video. And I said to him, because he doesn't have any gratitude for women at all. Thinks they're just totally, in his life, not necessary. I said, look, you got to think back in your life to women who helped you. You know, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And he said, no woman has ever been nice to me, has ever helped me. And it was after that discussion that I realized something even way heavier, is that humans have evolved. Like, we've been human for at least like 200,000 years. And even before that, we were very close to human. Cro-Magnums and different, very similar. Okay. Or even if you're Christian and you believe that we were created 6,000 years ago, it doesn't matter. Same thing. The same thing is this, is that before you were born, okay, the reason why you're born is because your parents had you, right? If your parents had sex with somebody else, you wouldn't be here. It would be another personality here. Somebody who looked differently, thought differently. It would not be you. Your consciousness is only here because you and your mom had sex at that time and created you. It's the only reason why you're here. You're not anybody else. You can't suddenly become somebody in Africa and see the world through their eyes. You only have one pinhole to see this world, and that's your own pinhole, right? So even if there was no XYZ type of person in your life who ever helped you, before you were born, some woman fed some baby and put up with tons of shit and a crying baby and did everything she could to save that baby in order that your line of genes could exist.
Well, you gestated inside of a woman, right?
No, but I'm saying like somebody like not just things they couldn't control. Somebody put up with tons of pain and protected some baby in the past, and maybe even got killed by a tiger or whatever, for sure, in order to save your life. It was if you don't believe that life was harder in the past than now, you're out of your fucking mind. People in Finland survived in snow caves with leaves for the whole fucking winter and no clothes. Think about that. There was no leather before clothes. There was people in snow caves at minus million degrees who survived the whole fucking winter somehow. Up above the Arctic Circle. And it must have been miserable as fuck. They lost limbs like crazy. They had frostbite all the time.
Toes, fingers, ears.
Toes.
Nose.
They barely survived to an age when they could have a child, conceive. And then they died. And they gave their last bit to their kid. What about that? What about those fucking people? If you don't understand that, you're out of your fucking mind, because we got here through a lot of people's sacrifices. We think about our parents. Fuck your parents. Think of the gazillion generations before them. People did things. I mean, we talk about inventions that guys made to make life easy. Fuck those inventions. Let's just talk about survival. It was men and women. It was women protecting the kids, right? In a very harsh environment. So if you think someone bought you at Walmart with a receipt and some kind of warranty, you're out of your fucking mind. It's a rough and tumble world. And go look at ants. Go look at animals. Think about life for a second. Life was not always this easy. And a lot of people, were there, And I think about this a lot. Whenever I kind of get down, I have a difficult time. I think that, what would my relatives think who survived that period if I did this or that? What would they think about me if I couldn't quit nicotine? Right? I never smoked, but I chewed. I think about this as a kind of like a war tribunal. I imagine myself with my relatives in Finland, and I'm like, hey guys, I can't quit chewing tobacco. It's too hard. Could I say that to these guys? Could I honestly say that to these guys? No fucking way. I threw it away. Now that example is actually not true. I thought about my daughter, but I use this tribunal thing for many things in my life. So if you can't ever think, every time you think something's hard, like maybe it's hard to do something like to pull off a toenail that's infected, or to, let's say, get into killer shape from not being in shape. And you're like, oh, it's too hard. Every time you think that, you got to slap yourself. You got to say, wait a second. Could I say that to the relatives who, essentially, people talk about Jesus giving their life for you. Basically, fuck Jesus. Your relatives are the ones who gave their lives for you. They gave their lives for you literally, not figuratively. They literally gave you the last thing they had to eat.
That's it's pretty heavy. Yeah. And well guys, this has been another Ronin Man. I hope you guys get something from this one. Please like, subscribe, a comment, please. Let's keep the discussion going, and catch you guys next.